Is the XK23 better than the POF9? How good is Gridlock following her new buff? And overall, how good are the new operator changes? Year 11 Season 2 releases in 2 days time on the 2nd of June. And there's a high chance you've already heard all of these operator changes, but what I want to do is get in depth to them on the test server and see how impactful they're going to be. I don't like long intros, so hit that sub button. We're trying to hit 250k, drop a like, and let's get into this. Right, starting with Gridlock. Now, I want to say something. In my initial season video, I actually said something wrong about Gridlock. Reason was I just simply made a mistake and I was tired. I apologize for it. One of the things I said in that video was that her Trax stingers do 35 HP of damage. What I meant to say was that her Trax stingers are now 35 HP themselves. So it's going to take more shots to destroy them. So as you can see, they are now 35 HP. Previously, they were 1 HP of damage. So if you shot a Trax stinger with any weapon, they would die after 1 shot. Now, if your weapon does deal lower than 35 HP of damage, you're going to have to shoot it multiple times per Trax stinger. So it's just going to make clearing them a little bit harder for the defenders and allow this to be more of a substantial piece of flank watching utility. Now, not only is that going to, of course, slow down the defenders who are trying to flank, but also you have to remember every single shot they take on a Trax stinger is giving their position away. This is then going to force the defenders to do, on average, more shots onto the Trax stingers than they did before, which means there's more opportunities for you as the attacker to hear that flank coming out, because you may mishear a shot, you may be too far away to hear a shot. Just basic rules of statistics, if they are shooting more shots, you have a higher likelihood of hearing that flank. So that's already a strong thing with her gadget. Secondly, I think that actually the best thing here is that if you decide to walk in the Trax stinger, you will have the limping effect for 10 seconds. Now, I really like that they're using the limping effect so much these days. This is something that was introduced alongside Frost's sort of mini rework. When you're able to pull yourself out of the Frost mat yourself, you then had the limping effect. Something I had always said after that is that this should be an effect that should come to Thorn, Gridlock, and actually Sledge. Fun fact, I like the idea if you're on the receiving end of Sledge's shrapnel when he destroys the floor, I think you should get a limping effect from that, but that's a different conversation. They finally added it to Thorn at the end of last year, and now we're getting it on Gridlock. And again, this is on top of her already existing damage as well. So you are stuck in a hard position of either shooting the Trax stingers or tanking them, especially with the limping effect now being a thing. I honestly think that there's not any situation where you should be tanking them, which I think is good. Like, I don't think they should be, tankable, which has been the issue you've been able to do. Like, if there was like 2 maybe off place and you could like navigate around them, you could just tank 2 of them and then get up the staircase. And I do agree that you'd be like, oh, well, maybe that's a failure of the Gridlock, which I somewhat agree with. But yeah, I just think this is a much better system, and I think she is finally in her true form of a flank watch operator. Of course, to compensate for all of this, she now only has 3 Trax stingers down from 4. So they'll still obviously spread out a bunch, but she only has like 3 of the deployable ones. She used to have 4. So that makes her more in line with Nomad now, who also has 3 Airjabs. So I guess that is worth noting that Nomad and Gridlock are now on the same amount of utility. And you've also got the more minor changes as well, such as the Mother one. That's what their actual terminology there. So the Mother Caltrop, so that's the main one you throw. That deploy delay is 0.4 seconds, down from 0.45. Then the deploy time of the Trax stingers are 0.45 seconds, down from 0.5. So it's only really increments of 0.05 this stuff is changing. And they've reduced the canister throw time to 0.4 seconds, also down from 0.45. I feel like, when you are playing with variables of 0.05 seconds, yes, that will have an effect, but you're just not going to notice that off the rip. Like, when you're looking at this, you're not going to notice that change, but just know that they are slightly faster. Now, I do think it is worth noting that if Ubisoft do go through their speed and armor change, which was tested last year, I have some videos on that, but if you're not aware, there was different armor systems now introduced, and one of them were Juggernauts, for example, which was the heaviest class at 150 HP. I do think they will tweak that a bit, but at the current time of that test, that's what it was. This does come in line with all of that, especially with like the tanking and limping system as well. So if you are a Juggernaut operator, technically you would be able to tank these a lot more. You have to remember, when we see balancing changes, we only see them in the present. Ubisoft see them for the next foreseeable future. They know what changes they have planned within over the next year or maybe even 2 years as well. So some of this stuff may be planning for the future, and I at least always look at that, especially when it comes to like damage and tanking and stuff like that, I kind of think of that speed and armor system in the back of my head. Zofia is now once again a 2-speed 2 armor. Similar to what they did to Sledge, they made Sledge too slow and they made Zofia too slow, and they're finally rectifying that. I personally don't think that 1 speeds are a bad thing in this game. For like example, you know, like Monty and stuff like that. I think a 1-speed Monty is fine. But operators like Zofia and Sledge, operators like them who need to have that maneuverability and get around the map and actually use their gadgets, it never really made sense to make them 1-speeds. Now, Zofia, when she launched, was just a better version of Ashe. These days, I'd still say she is a better version of Ashe. But people are comfortable on Ashe, more comfortable than they are in Zofia, and that's perfectly fine. And plus, you know, Ashe can counter mirror these days. She never used to do that. So there is a little bit of difference now between Ashe and Zofia. I think it's a perfectly fine time to make her a 2-2 again. I'm excited to see Zofia re-enter the meta as she should be. And remember, she also got hard breach charges not too long ago as well. Actually, maybe that was over like a year and a half ago. And they also did improve the recoil of her AR in the last refinement patch. So yeah, expect to see Zofia be back in her role finally. For Nomad, her AK-74M now has access to all of the grips. This was actually a weapon which had no grips, kind of like how the F2 has been for a while as well. When Deimos released, he got given this weapon as well, which of course started with Nomad, so both of them had it. Deimos, I'm actually not sure what decision they made, but they realized that he was a bit underpowered with this loadout, so they gave him grips, but they said that this was only for him. So Deimos has had grips on the AK-74M since his launch. Now, Nomad is finally getting them as well. Consistency, I think, is just the main thing here. And, you know, both the ARX and the AK-74M are great weapons, and you can kind of choose both of them. So, yeah, Ubisoft just said that they wanted to align the weapon for both of the operators. You know, it's not very fun, I don't think, when you go from playing Deimos with the AK with a vertical grip and then going to Nomad with the AK and not being allowed to use it, because you are going to get 2 different recoil patterns as well. And like, yeah, I understand, you know, it's like depth, it's like skill issue and stuff like that, blah blah blah, but like, I think it's just those minor things where it's like, we don't need to make this a skill thing here. Like, if it's the same weapon, just give them both the same grips. So yeah, that's what's happening with Nomad, and her Airjab Detection Range is now 3.25 meters, and it was previously 3, so it will catch people 0.25 meters more than it did before, so increasing her flank watching potential as well, which means you can also hide them in locations higher on doorways than you could before, for example. Just a nice quality of life. Right, let's finally talk about the XK23. This is the brand new assault rifle, which is being given to Dokkaebi, Raura, and Sens. This is a fully automatic weapon which deals 49 HP of damage per shot with a 655 RPM rate of fire. It does medium destruction, so in Ubisoft's own words, that means it doesn't destroy studs in walls. So you're not going to be able to make rotates with this weapon, for example. It has a magazine capacity of 35 bullets with a total of 5 magazines. And of course, +1 in the chamber, coming together with a grand total of 175 bullets in the weapon. Reload speed is 3.5 seconds, and it has the option of pretty much every single attachment in the game. All the sights, all of the grips, all of the muzzles, and of course the only underbarrel there is, laser. I mean, I guess the only thing it doesn't have are the telescopic scopes, but no one's using them. Oh, and if you put on the extended barrel on the weapon, it will then do 54 damage per shot. So that's a pretty good damage output. But yeah, I mean, this weapon is fine. Like, it's decently strong. I'd compare it to, honestly, like, I don't know, Thermite or something like that. His one, the one that him and Osa has. But like, yeah, Dokkaebi and Raura are clearly like easy to understand with this weapon. Like, Dokkaebi only had the DMR or the Bosch G. Raura also only had the DMR or the LMG. Giving them an assault rifle makes so much sense. Like, it's just a nice third option to give them that different thing. The same way that giving Thatcher a DMR changed up his loadout, because he never had a weapon in that class. You know, I really like it on Raura. I think I'd probably still prefer the DMR on Dokkaebi, and although I like the DMR on Raura as well, being able to like use the AR to swing off your dom panels, which are opening really fast, I think it really works with Raura. Sens, I simply do not get why they gave Sens this weapon. I truly don't. Like, yes, they do have different destruction outputs. One of them does hit harder, the other one has a faster fire rate. They do both have their pros and cons to choose either. But my main thing here is that when you look at Sens's loadout, Sens already has an assault rifle. The POF 9 is already an assault rifle. I don't really think you're doing much to their kit adding another assault rifle. I just think if you want to improve Sens, why not just buff the POF 9? Sens is the only one with that weapon anyway. You're not going to risk accidentally buffing another operator if you touch that weapon. Now, I do genuinely feel like this is a psychological choice. I think that they understand that the POF 9 is a fine weapon. They honestly understand that Sens is kind of in a decent spot. If you watch Pro League, Sens is actually really strong. The only thing with Sens is that they are an execute operator. So unfortunately, that makes them very situational. So I kind of think the idea of giving them the XK23 is purely to try and shake some of the stigma of Sens and force people to try them because they have the new weapon as well. Me personally, from a balancing perspective, I honestly think the POF 9 I'd probably run more. I think that drum magazine makes it a bit more desirable. It's got a higher fire rate as well. I think the time to kill on both weapons is damn near similar. Honestly, the only thing that XK23 has going over the POF 9 is its higher damage output, but I think for a lot of people, the more comfortable recoil pattern on the POF 9, the more magazine size, like because it uses a drum mag, so there's more ammo, and the better rate of fire for a near similar time to kill, I think the POF 9 is just objectively better. So I don't know, that's just kind of my broad stance on it. If you want my honest answer, I think just try both of these weapons and just see which one you prefer on Sens. The XK23 will hit harder, but if you prefer that sort of higher fire rate and more comfortable magazine size, go for the POF 9. So yeah, I mean, there you go, choice. Maybe that's the reason they did it, but I don't know. I'm still like not 100% on that. And I actually want to read what Ubisoft said about giving Sens this weapon. They said, Sens' available weapons have seen limited changes since their release. Their current loadout consists of the POF 9 assault rifle, which has received several balancing adjustments over time and now sits in a healthier position alongside the 417 marksman rifle. A more specialized option, better suited for long-range engagements. Even with the access to the POF 9, we believe that the XK23 is a strong addition to Sens' loadout. With a more approachable design, a slower rate of fire, higher damage, and a smaller magazine, the XK23 offers a distinct alternative to the POF 9. So yeah, that's what they said about it. Honestly, doesn't really explain much as to why they're giving it though. I feel like that's a bit of a nothing burger explanation, but hey ho. Now we move into the refinement changes. I feel like these ones are a bit harder to test because there's not really like a clear, outcome you can show, sort of like with Gridlock's buff, for example, but it just makes the game more fluid and it makes these operators more, just better to play. For example, the first one for Deimos, when you identify an enemy, because of course you need to identify an enemy to track them, it takes 4 seconds to appear now rather than 5. So what that means is, let's say there's a bandit, you red ping a bandit, it appears on his HUD, but you have to wait before 5 seconds before you can then track him. There was a grace period between identifying them and then being able to track them. That grace period is now 4 seconds down from 5. So you can track them 1 second faster than you could before, but it isn't like affecting the, scan duration itself, if that makes sense. And if you're curious, it's not the same as Dokkaebi. Dokkaebi is actually like, I think less than a second between scan and actually target them. So yeah, maybe that needs some balancing there for Dokkaebi at least. And objectively, in a 1v1, Dokkaebi is actually more oppressive than Deimos now, at least in my opinion. So yeah, I did find that a bit interesting. Mozzie's pest capture range is now 1.75 meters, up from 1.5, so an increase of 0.25. King George actually made a really good point here, because this buff now allows him to catch many drones who are able to jump around the door frame and dodge his pests. So yeah, just making Mozzie more consistent, making his gadget more reliable, and yeah, great point by KG. It's a lot harder for you to now dodge pests, which are placed on the side of doorways. Pulse's cardiac sensor is now 10.5 meters, up from 9, so an increase of 1.5 meter. I think it's a good thing. I've been playing a lot of Pulse recently. I kind of still wish it was more though. I don't know. I feel like I'm in positions with Pulse, and I feel like I should be able to see heartbeats at a further distance. Maybe that's just me though. But I don't think Pulse is that aggressively oppressive either. And if you want to relay info with him, you have to be really hot on the microphone. So I think he's actually quite a high-skilled operator. When you're not really communicating, yes, you can like stop a plant from below, but you can do that regardless if this was 9 meters or 10.5 meters, you know what I mean? So this buff definitely does improve, us Pulse players who use our microphones and relay info to our team. I kind of think it should be higher than 10.5 though, at least in my opinion. And Solis, an operator who has been climbing out of the pit ever since she had that major nerf. Of course, she's a lot better these days, got her impacts back and everything like that. The spec IO duration, the reload time, and the overclock are now 17 seconds, up from 15, so an increase of 2 seconds. So what that means is you have 17 seconds to use the gadget from start to finish. That also then means, however, that the reload time is 17 seconds. That's kind of the trade-off with most of the gadgets, which are duration-based. If you improve how long the operator can use it, you then in turn have to make it longer for them to wait to reuse it again. So that's that sort of balancing trade-off there. So overall, pretty good balancing in my opinion. Of course, in the 0.1 update, we'll get more refinement changes. In the 0.2 update of the season, we'll have another major balancing update. In the 0.3, we'll have refinement. And then 0.4, well, 0.4 update is Year 11 Season 3. So, yeah, again, consistent, you know, operator balancing across the board by Ubisoft's cadence and stuff like that. But yeah, I think this is an overall good one. Zofia is definitely much more playable now, I think, being a 2-2. Really like Gridlock. That's probably the highlight here, in my opinion. And many of the refinement changes are good. But what one is your favorite? And do you still feel like there are some operators who need refinement changes? I really hope Zero gets a major buff at some point. Like, he just sits in such a weird position, and I want more done with him. But yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. Just catch you all in the next one. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.
To shape our future.